What up, what up, what up? Let me just check out this chair situation. How are you? I feel like I'm like angry. Are you angry too, or? And then I have the responsibility of raising a kid, right? And she's 5 3/4, she will tell you. And I feel as if I have to compartmentalize. I have to figure out how to be like fucking like rageful when I need it. And then I have to go home and be nurturing and like get excited about like a fucking cat that she's drawn. Do you any mothers in the house? Any parents in the house? You're here? I love you. So I feel like I'm working really hard on channeling my rage. I tell people, like, when I was in my 20s, I was pure, unadulterated, unchecked, uncontained rage. I was angry, and angry because my mom had left me, angry because my father wasn't around, angry because I felt as if I'd been pushed out of Jamaica, because it was, I really appreciated the conversation earlier that talked about forced migration. You know, there's this narrative of, I don't know who these Americans are, but they have these conversations like in like American rooms, maybe around American tables, where, you know, we are all like running to come to America because we want to become America so much. We are ready to rip off our clitorises and like lay them, you know, under tires, you know, they're fucking GM tires in order to become American. And then I really appreciated the conversation that included forced migration as a way of rethinking the narrative of people moving across the planet. We don't really want to, most people, you know, we're not like, oh my God, we came to America and all of a sudden shit is like mad sexy and happy. And we're just eating better and we're just like welcoming and, you know, just we're, you know, all of us who are not white can gather and meet each other and like, you know, talk about what it feels like not to be white. Do you have those meetings of not being white as well? I don't know because, you know, anyways. So I think I'm mostly making work that is wanting to articulate this rage. And as I said, in my 20s, I was rageful and angry all the time. And in my 30s, I was like grown and was like having proper orgasms. And unapologetic for them, you know, I wasn't trying to look good while I was coming, you know. It's not, you know, and when you're really coming, there's nothing pleasant about it. Nobody wants to take a photo and go like, look, I was coming here. So I was like an adult, you know what I mean? I was like stepping into my adultness, you know, I was getting like a few gray pubes. I was feeling very, you know, adult. And then I had a kid. And then the shit just got fucked up again. So all of you who think, you know, you're in your 20s, you're in your 30s, you're going to therapy, you're dealing with all of your therapy shit, you're seeing your therapist every week, you're over-talking things with your lesbian lover. You know, you're just like dealing with all of your shit, you know what I mean? Like you're coming and you're just never gonna deal with this shit again. And then every single time something big happens in your life, all of this shit that you thought you dealt with just kind of resurfaces like differently. It's like, you know, have you ever had a problem flushing the toilet and it just keeps coming back up? It's like a different shape because it's been mashed up, you know? So all my life, I work very hard at making work that is remarkably honest. I don't always achieve it, but it is always my attempt. I want to make work that I can say, okay, that's exactly how I was feeling, and I wasn't crafting it so much. I was just kind of allowing it to come out of me, kind of like my pee. And one of the things that I've kind of come to as a conclusion is that there is actually no wrong or right way to go about changing the world. That you just have to be in conversation with other people who can see a goal that might be common to both of you. So now that I'm 44, and I'm not having sex at all because I have a small child, I would like to say that I'm not sure I have any answers. I just have a lot of questions, and I'm living a life now where I'm leaving room for all those questions to kind of hang in the air. And I'm trying to be authentic and trying to live a life that allows my child to see what authentic looks like, even if it's a little messy. The other day we had a moment. We do these living room protests where where she's we're talking about all kinds of shit. And the last, maybe two of the ones ago, she and I were having a conversation, and she was talking about she doesn't want to listen to me, and we're talking about arguing, and so I'm in teacher mode. I'm very much trying to teach this small person how to be in the world, because one must teach the children, because I am an adult, so I must teach the child. She's a child, I'm an adult, that's the relationship we should be having. And she says to me, so, do you want to say anything about when you were a child? And I said, well, when I was a child, nobody was very patient with me, because we're talking about patience, and we're like, no one was patient with me. Everybody was kind of angry, and they had very short tempers with me and whatever. And she goes, well, maybe when you're talking to me, you're like, remember when you said that your people didn't have any patience with you? So you were like remembering that, and then you're like, you can't hold it, and then you start like shouting at me. And I was like, oh, fuck. So really, it's about leaving room for the questions, which is kind of what is happening in this session today, where we're just having a lot of questions. And as Mark said earlier on, the question from the young woman in the corner there who said, why can't we undo if there's more than, that poem by Marge Piercy, The Low Road? Look it up, Low Road, you all have phones. Where she says, one can do this, and two can do this, and three can have this, and five can this, and 6 and 10,000 and 1 million. And she says that's how you build a revolution, one by one. And it's about the math, and it's about the numbers. And that question is still haunting me, like, why is this motherfucker so much more powerful than we are when he just has, 2 gonads and nearly not a brain? Like, why? But this is the eternal question of feminism too, right? So, so I have a poem for you that I've been working on, and I don't know if it's much of a poem, because it's really just an angry fucking rant. So for those of you who need an articulation of your angry rant that is happening in your house every day and in your body every day, this might be it. Thank you so much for having me here today, because, I'm not really very, I make fun. I live in New York. I make fun of you all. In our rooms, we sit around and go do you want to go to the bay and have bean juice? Because everything is always great. We just have to hug it out and say Ashe 10 times and have some fucking vegan shit. So I make fun of you in my living room with my other jaded New York, unhappy, overpriced rent, which you all have no to anyways, friends, you know what I mean? So, but there's something in gathering, eh? Regardless of how different we are, of how I drink, way too much sugar in my tea and you have like bean juice. Like there's something in the gathering, and somewhere maybe somebody will pour something into something else, and then all of a sudden it'll be amazing. But here we are, a poem, and it don't need no title because it's self-fucking-explanatory. Every time I get a microphone, I get this uncontrollable urge to shout, Donald J. Trump is not my president. And that's not just because I didn't vote for the fool, not just because he's become the latest tool members of the contemporary clan use to remind themselves of when they ruled this land with the hand of white racist terror. If you have ever had to dress down some melanin challenge motherfucker talking about all lives matter, raise your right hand and say amen. So you know exactly what I'm saying when I say Donald J. Trump cannot be recognized as no motherfucking president. First of all, he's been on the planet 70 years and still has the vocabulary of a third grader. Not to mention, his mouth always looks to me like an incontinent asshole that can't hold its own bullshit in. Spewing the septic defecation of discrimination, contaminating the air with entitlement, and steady providing validation for all them other white boys who feel like equal opportunity for everyone else means we are trying to motherfucking oppress them. Donald J. Trump could never be my president because he began his political career by questioning the legitimacy of the first black president elected in a country built upon the hardworking backs of African Americans. He could never be my president because he had the gall to call for President Barack Obama's birth papers as if this were 1831 and he was one of them brutal white men free to grab any black body and demand documents. In the America we claim we are creating, men like that can no more lead us than can a predominantly white police force protect the black descendants of the very brown bodies they enslaved to gain the radical racial advantage they refuse to let go of, no matter how obvious it is that in America race and opportunity are linked, like poverty and the fucking prison system, like rape and a woman's right to choose, like who has wealth and who pays the least taxes, like gerrymandering and who has the fucking right to vote. It is time to admit we've all been sold a 6 for a fucking 9. This con artistry of race and sex and economy isn't new. Donald J. Trump is just another white knot in the noose they keep trying to tie around the necks of the disadvantaged majority. Just another story in the elaborate inheritance of lies they sell to anyone who isn't rich or white. These nationalistic fairy tales are what they tell you to keep from being too woke, to keep you from poking too deeply into whose pockets most of the wealth ordinary people work for from 9 to 5 in this country goes. I am willing to bet the same is true for the rest of y'all motherfuckers, but I can tell you this. Black people have had enough of this systematic bullshit. Between 500 years of unrelenting racism and the recent rise of this fake-ass, overtanned, idiotic orangutan, black bodies have got no more tears left to cry. We ready to try some next level shit to resurrect some Black Panther, Angela Davis, Assata Shakur shit. The state of things as they are is unacceptable. So I refuse to give deference to this walking, shameful evidence of what fear, prejudice, and a little Russian interference can birth in a nation obviously asleep at the wheel of our own democratic elections. Donald J. Trump is not my president because his tenure in the White House is a result of unchecked sexism, a culture of rape, and the terrorist undercurrents of a new emerging Ku Klux Klan. Donald J. Trump is not my president because he wants to disappear my Muslim neighbors, because he wants to deport Mexican-American families, because he fails to recognize that the only Americans who are not immigrant Americans are native fucking Americans. He is not my president because the man sexualizes his own daughter. He will never be my president because I want to demonstrate to my own daughter that a man who boasts about grabbing women by their vaginas without their permission does not ever deserve her respect, no matter who he is, no matter how rich he says he is, that even though this egotistical airhead masterminded and pulled off the greatest political coup in the history of modern elections, he is still not our president. He remains nothing but an illegitimate, embarrassing burden I hope we don't have to carry for the whole 4 years. Every time I see this orange snake slithering around on my screen, I want to break the fucking TV, rip it off the wall, let it fall from my 5th floor apartment. I wish I could just close my eyes and just pretend this shit isn't happening. But the consequences of inaction would be catastrophic. When the stakes are this high, every kind of resistance is necessary. When the arm of injustice persists, we have to develop new ways to resist this shit. We have to find a way to impeach this motherfucker. And when you get discouraged, remember, Rome wasn't built in a day. It's going to take more than 200 days to get this fucker off your TV, out of the Oval Office, and out of our collective consciousness. It could take a full year. Maybe 2 of them, God help us, it could take 4. But no matter how long it takes, you have to keep faith. You have to keep repeating the truth. This buffoon cannot lead, so we cannot follow him to the places he would have us go. Every day you have to wake up. You have to say it to yourself. You have to say it to your neighbor, your co-worker, your fucking fish, your parrot, your dog. Donald J. Trump is not my president, has never been your president, will never be your president. Make it a mantra. Say it over and over again. And just like every despot that existed before him, one day everyone will see him for what he is. And when all of how he came to be is actually known, whoever is responsible for the rise of this Cheeto-dusted Freddy Krueger invading every aspect of our lives, whoever it was, be it Vladimir or one of them funny-looking Trump children, when the whole truth finally comes out, that Iago motherfucker will have to give more than a pound of flesh as reparations to the entire human race. Someone is going to pay for this bumbleclot warp in time.